The event is the starting point or the potential starting point for a relationship.
I don't like connecting on LinkedIn.
The quality of your network, it's just like a formula.
That is the easiest way to start making connections.
Meeting a brand new community is very hard.
Anybody that I scanned or anybody that you scanned, you get a summary of those individuals.
Throwing parties is such a hack.
Follow up on a personal level versus a business level.
I think it's a red flag to look into. We are back with another episode of the Do As I Say, Not As I Did podcast. The name kind of explains everything. We're giving you advice based on everything we did wrong the first time. I'm actually not sure what the guess was, at least everything I did wrong the first time, which was a lot. But each week I bring on founders, investors, product experts, community experts, technology futurists, sales gurus, just about anyone who is very smart and can help us work out how to build a great business together. And then together, the guests and I, or the co-host and I really, we answer the questions about what's going on in your lives and in your businesses. We find them from Reddit, or sometimes people send them in, but really these are just challenges that are real challenges that the guests have never heard before. So they're actually hearing this for the first time, just like you are. So if you have questions, or you're trying to put out fires in your business, send us an email and we'll workshop it on the show with a future guest. Send those emails through to podcast@joelditrapani.com. That is a mouthful of a name. So that's in the show notes. You can copy and paste it later. I don't expect you to figure that one out. I'm your host, Joel DiTrapani, with a mouthful of a name, and I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of Vigo, which is an edtech scale-up. We've grown through Australia, we've grown through the UK, and now we're focused on the US. On top of that, I'm also an advisor and a coach in the product space where I help startups and businesses work out how to run great product teams, because that is the secret to running great products and building great products that people want to use, and that is absolutely something I got a lot wrong on in the beginning. And today I'm super excited to be joined by Cherie Werner, who I have heard described as the heart of the Austin startup ecosystem. Cherie is the co-founder and community organizer of Fiesta, one of the biggest and friendliest communities in Austin, bringing together investors, founders, entrepreneurs, startups, and Austin newcomers. Really, it just brings together everyone that's interesting. Fiesta throws events all the time, but most notably holds a monthly community event that regularly packs out any location they hold it in, and it's constantly pushing the building occupancy limits beyond maybe what's legal. Outside of this community, Cherie is also the co-founder and chief kindness officer at Koya Innovations, a startup focused on retaining key employees and customers with kindness. Cherie is just an incredibly kind human being, and when I first came to Austin, she immediately invited me to dinner in her home with her family and to sit down for coffee and then introduce me to everyone she could in the city because she just has time for everyone. Cherie is an absolute expert at creating connection. So let's jump into it. Welcome, Cherie. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Wow, what an intro. Thanks. It's nice to be here.
Well, tell me, Cherie, what are you working on at the moment? Because there's a lot there, but where do you spend your time?
Right now, what I'm working on is trying to figure out how to make Fiesta sustainable. We grew so quickly, and I just feel like there's more to offer to this ecosystem because it's grown very quickly since the pandemic, and just trying to figure out like where Fiesta fits in and how to truly help founders in their journey.
I love it. Well, there's definitely a need for it because you just see every month just the events getting bigger and rowdier, and I absolutely love it. But I've got a bunch of no, the fun kind of rowdy, the rowdy that people like. Well, I've tried to get a bunch of community related questions today, questions that I think you can add a lot of insight into. So let's jump into the challenges. All right. This challenge is called How to Network and Keep Relationships. I've been an entrepreneur for over 10 years, and I struggle because I let my introverted quality get in the way of networking and keeping these relationships. I completely understand the difference a contact can have for a business versus doing it by myself with no help. What could be some advice to network with purpose and keep those relationships for the long run? For background, I go to a lot of different events with heavy hitters in the entrepreneurial community, and I can have a slight conversation with them and we exchange contact information. This conversation would be the only conversation I would have, and nothing moves with having that person as a contact. How would I turn a contact into someone who supports my business, can gain advice from, and can call on them for anything business related? From Weary Injury 655.
So you kind of cut in and out on that, but that's okay. I get the gist of the question. I think if I was to summarize, they're asking how how to network and not just get a contact, but to keep the personal aspect of it as well.
Yeah. So how do
Is
you
that
go from like meeting someone at an event to actually building a relationship with this person?
yeah? I mean, my first thought is that, I mean, an event is an opportunity to meet somebody and find if there's some kind of vibe. Is there a way that you can help them? And that's kind of how I look at it. Is like, how can I help that individual? And then following up on that, um, and meeting outside of the event. Following up, let's grab coffee, let's have lunch. You were wanting to meet this person, here's the connection. How can I help you in the future? And something that I've recently started doing, because I would end up with a stack of cards like this at networking events. And it's like, I'm going to find time to do that. And I wouldn't. So now every Sunday after, I will go through any contacts that I've made, put where I met them, and then also why was that connection, why did I feel that was a valuable connection, and then respond to that individual. I don't like connecting on LinkedIn because I would rather look at the person, then look at their LinkedIn, connect at that point, reach out to them by email or text, and set up a time outside. How about you?
Yeah, I think y- you make a great point. Is that like the event is the starting point or the potential starting point for a relationship. So no one is going to go from just having like a brief interaction to 6 months time. They're just reaching out, being like, "Can I help you raise money?" or "Can I help you change your product?" Like that's not how it works. It's like every relationship in your life. Relationships take work and relationships take effort, and so you need to follow up a lot. I use the word aggressively. Like I follow up aggressively after events, and that's how I meet people. And that's how I build a community because you got to put the work in, and that really stands out. So, um, I I'm actually hugely pro LinkedIn, but I think it depends on your own approach, in how you want to follow up. So, for me, the event is a point in time. At any event, you might meet 5 people, 10 people, 50 people, depending on the size of the event. And then out of those portion of people, there's probably like a number of people that you found particularly interesting that you wanted to continue building a relationship with, or they know about something that you have no idea about, and you think that's interesting to build a relationship with. So that's the same for them. You might be interested in 10 of the 50. They're interested in 10 of the 50. So the fact that you're both interested in each other is potentially an even smaller kind of group where there's actually a lot of foundations for a good relationship here. So I would say not everyone you meet is going to be the best, most perfect connection. Most of them won't, but that's still okay. The conversations are worth it. You get different perspectives. It's interesting. You get better at pitching. You get better at talking and like finding commonalities with people. So go to the events, find the people, then the work starts. So my process generally, and I think about this process a lot, is during the event, I take as many notes as I can. I met Cherie. Cherie's interested in these things. Cherie's trying to learn about this. Here's the kind of value I can add to Cherie. I'm always thinking about how I can add value to someone. Because if you just give value, eventually, maybe not from that person, but the value comes back to you in your life. So always think about how you can add value to another person. I take as many notes as I can about the people. Sometimes after the event, when I'm leaving, I'll sit in my car, or as soon as I get home, I'll sit at my desk and I just jot down brief notes from my head so I remember that kind of stuff. Then the next day, I make sure that I've connected with all of them on LinkedIn or email if you want to connect by email. But everyone that you wanted to connect with, I do an outreach. Hey, great to meet you last night. Cherie was interested in X, Y, Z. Like I'm also interested in that. Like maybe we should get a coffee and talk about whatever that was. And I always just ask people to catch up, or like if I have an event coming up, hey, do you want to meet at this other event? Like, and do a follow up action. So that's how you start to convert. I heard this statistic recently, and I don't know how true it is, but I feel like anecdotally it feels true for me, is that it takes 40 hours of time with someone before you become close friends. So like if you spend 4 minutes at a networking event, that's over. Like people forget that. But if you spend 40 hours with someone, or at least on the more you spend time with them, the more relationship you'll grow.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I mean, to your point, you've been to our event and you if have experienced the check-in system that we're using, where you scan the QR code. Part of that was created because of that particular frustration. How do you begin a connection? And I think a lot of individuals tend to remember meeting people at events. So our technology is such that you and anybody that has checked into that particular event will have access to the entire database of the folks that checked in. What we're doing on the back end of that is after the event. So like at the event, if you and I were wanting, we met and we were interested in each other, I could scan your QR code, and the following day, anybody that I scanned or anybody that you scanned, you get a summary of those individuals, which is allowing me then to go and look them up on LinkedIn. And a lot of them add their LinkedIn profile to their profile page. And then you can also see the people that you may not have met, because 300 people coming to an event, you're only going to meet a handful. The goal is not to meet everybody at the event. It's kind of allowing serendipity to take place and trust that you're going to meet the people that you're supposed to meet.
Yeah.
So
No,
we're trying to help in
I love that system. Like I love meeting people, and I think about the process and the practice of it a lot. But at these Fiesta events, Cherie built a system to kind of make it easier for you. So you go to the systems, you check in, instead of like scanning someone's LinkedIn profile, you'll scan and connect with the name badges that are in there. And then you have this list, this email list that comes to you, this digest of, hey, here's all the people that you have, and all this different information about them that people volunteer about themselves. And it does make follow-up a whole lot easier. But what I would say is that follow-up is the magic. You've got to put the work in. Even if you had this great interaction, if you never see that person again, that was just all it was an interaction. It can't be a relationship. So I might try and summarize this one here, Cherie, into where I think we're getting. So, it sounds great that we're injury. You're going to events, you're meeting a lot of people, you're getting the contact details. That's step number one. But that's only step number one. You need to put in so much more work to convert these people to having relationships. Okay, so find the people you find really interesting, that you're happy to get coffee with, that you're happy to put the effort into, and then follow them up. Build a strong relationship with them by spending time with them. And if you see an interesting article, send it over to them. You find a new newsletter, video, send it over to them as well. And just try and have as many touch points as you can, and that will build a stronger and stronger relationship. See how you can add value to them, add as much value as you can. And then there might be an opportunity to work together in the future. There might be an opportunity where your business can change because of that relationship. Is there any kind of advice I've missed there on that final judgment, Cherie?
No, I think that's great. One of the things I also do is I try and figure out what's something unique about that person. And when you're follow up on a personal level versus a business level. Like, I really enjoyed talking to you, and it might have been about their dog. But I think being personal versus transactional.
Absolutely. That is a really good point. If you just say, it was great to meet you at event, like, I'm ignoring that, to be honest. Like, unless it's like, hey, like, when you said your dog's name was Indy, like, and show me that photo, like, she was so cute. Like, I've got a border collie too. I'd be like, holy shit, like, this person put effort in. Effort is universally admired. People appreciate that.
100%.
All right. Well, we're at injury. We're going to close that one out, and you've been advised. You know how to build great relationships now. And we're on to the next challenge. This challenge is called, should I stay in a big city or move back home? I'm looking for advice on whether or not to stay in a metropolitan city or move back home. I'm from a small city in India. I started my business as an e-learning platform for interior designers during COVID. But once the pandemic was over, it soon settled and the wave left. But I did get the taste of technology and its power. So I've spent the last few years and months learning how to code. I'm currently building a B2B platform for the design and construction industry. Last month, I shifted to the Silicon Valley of India, Bangalore. I was quite excited to move here, but my experience has not been so amazing. I'm busy most of the time coding. I had a notion that I'll meet tons of great founders here, but I haven't even met one. If there are founder meetups, brainstorming sessions, they're happening majorly over the web on Zoom right now. So my question is, since I'm not able to benefit from the intellectual capital of the city, even after sacrificing the comforts of my home, should I stay here or move back to my hometown? Or am I missing doing something? from the switch fuse unit?
Wow, what a question. I think I would be curious to know how long that individual has been in that place. I think that's relevant to answering the question, um, because I think anytime you move, it takes time to figure out what is out there in that ecosystem, and it does take effort. That's why, when we created Fiesta, we realize the difficulties if you're coming into a big city that's changing constantly, and where do you begin? And so for a lot of individuals, if you're a founder in coding in particular, you're behind a computer most of the time. And I think it's important to find those different events that you make time for, to try and make connections, because you can move back home and you have that core group of individuals that's comfort to you, family. And I think family is really important. I love the fact that my daughters all live here within a mile and a half of my house, and I'm able to see them. Um, but I think age, how long they've been there, all are important factors, because sometimes it's about growing in that isolation, and you getting out of it to help you grow is important, because otherwise you stay in that security of the bubble that you have back home. That's not that beneficial either, possibly. Um, that's kind of my thought on it. I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, look, I think it can be hard to meet new people, whether it's in your home city or a new city. And whether or not you should move home is kind of depending on what you want to achieve in your life right now. But I would say you haven't given this a go. And and you need to give it a real go before going home, because I think you'd regret it forever. And Bangalore is an incredible city filled with incredible entrepreneurs and incredible tech talent. And any major city, like especially when they have the startup themes like Austin or San Francisco, they have these incredible pools of talent that you can tap into. So I would say don't go home yet. Like have a crack, and really invest. And your outcomes are going to be so dependent on your inputs. So if you just spend all your time coding, the chances that you actually meet interesting people and get into a position where you have this incredible network that you're hoping for are so low. So you've got to put effort in. Now, I think the quality of your network, it's just like a formula. It's like amount of time in city multiplied by amount of time each week and amount of effort each week you put into trying to meet people. So for me, I didn't want to wait a year to meet a good group of people here in Austin. So when I got here, I aggressively networked. I was going to every event. Every single night I was at a different event. And I was seeing, what events do I like? What are the events where I'm meeting the people that are most like the people I want to meet? Then I was doing tons of follow-up, tons of coffees every single day, multiple coffees a day sometimes, hanging out with people on weekends, going to get drinks with people. On top of that, I was actively just messaging over 100 people a week on LinkedIn that I would think would find interesting. Different founders in Austin, different investors in Austin, different product leaders in Austin. And I just, so, it's about exposing yourself to different experiences. So the larger the surface area that you have, the more varied experiences you have, the stronger your network will become. The stronger your community become, the more friends that you will have. So when I got here, I felt like very alone, because not only am I in a new city, I'm on a completely new time zone on the other side of the world where I don't even have credit or a social security number or like anything like that. Like I can't even speak to someone at home because they're asleep when I'm awake, being from Australia, obviously. So, I think you've got to put the work in, and it is uncomfortable, like I thought I was, outgoing and charismatic, but like meeting a brand new community is very hard. So I just think you got to put a shitload of effort in. And for me, the effort comes down to go to a bunch of events, do the follow-up, and do cold outreach. Cold outreach is actually so effective at meeting people, I think.
Yeah. Well, and it reminds me, I just saw a LinkedIn post of an individual that had come to our event in September, and he realized that he had been very isolated and since moving to Austin, and hadn't met a lot of people, but sometimes just taking that first step and realizing it's not as scary as you think it's going to be. And that made him start making a list of different networking events. So his goal is now to go to at least one event a week, because it's important that we find our tribes wherever we are. So if you're interested in something specific, I mean, look on Meetup or some sort of platform like that for the things that you're interested in, because you're going to have that common ground, which makes it a little bit easier when you enter into a space with individuals to be able to have that talking point. So if it's AI or if it's coding, find other folks that are meeting that are coders and you can talk about coding. Or if it's um, you know a place that you like to, if you're a traveler, maybe being a remote traveler, finding a group that is about remote traveling. I think that's also helpful. But sometimes it's just taking the first step and realizing, like, oh wow, this is important.
Yeah,
So I think we agree
absolutely.
on that. Yeah. But you've been here a year, right? In Austin, you've been in Austin a year now. Because I remember when you showed up, it was like a year in January, right? You reached out. Like, I was amazed. Like, I got an invite to a party that you did at your house. That would be the other advice, is that if you don't feel like you're meeting people, invite people in. I feel like sometimes that is the easiest way to start making connections. But you invited 20, 30 people to a um, party at your place, and it was, I mean, it was a fabulous. I'm like, that's the way to do it.
Throwing parties is such a hack, you know? People want to get invited to parties. So if you throw a small party, it doesn't have to be like a blowout. People want to get invited. So just put an event 3 or 4 weeks in the calendar, make a meetup page or some kind of event page, and then everyone you meet, just invite them. Outreach on LinkedIn, invite them. Go to an event, you meet someone, you hit it off a little bit, come to my party. Like, that's such a fun way to do it. And then just regularly run events. So there's actually a book called The 2 Hour Cocktail Party by Nick Gray. uh, Read that book and do that. That's one way to make a great network in your city that you're living in.
Yeah. And even I think having meals together, I mean, because during the pandemic, that when I would meet people on lunch club, I mean, that's another great way to build your conversational skills, because you're paired up talking to someone for 45 minutes. And so you have to learn to listen as well as, share with the individual. But we would invite them over, like 3 or 4 people over for dinner, and then we would find out something about them and then have to bring them together with the next group of people that we invited, because there was so much commonality. And when you start connecting people, that also is a way to grow your network, because they're meeting each other and then y'all are getting together outside of that.
Absolutely. Like, I think, the hack is just spend time with people. The more time you spend with people, the better. Um, but if I bring this one to a close here and come to a final judgment here for the switch fuse unit, should you stay in a big city or move back home? I think you've got to stay in the big city. You've got to give it a real go, because until you've really had a crack at building relationships and meeting people, you're not going to know if the city's right for you or not. Because right now you're just feeling lonely, and that's hard. So here's the hacks: go to more events. Go to events all the time. Go to as many as that you physically can in a week. Like, you've got to take into consideration who you are and your energy. For me, I could go to 5. If you're going to do one, do that. That's totally fine. But just start going week after week and start meeting new people. Then do the follow up, catch up, have coffee, start to build those relationships, and then those people might start introducing you to different people as well. Start throwing your own events too. Throwing events is actually a whole lot easier than you think. It's a lot less work than you actually think it's going to be. And last, bonus hack. When you go to an event, make an active effort to meet the organizer and try and catch up with them, because the organizers have massive networks and they love meeting people, and they'd be more than happy to connect you. The reason they're throwing an event is because they like connecting people. Cherie was one of the first people I had a coffee with. She was so generous with her time, connecting me to a bunch of people. Some of my closest friends in Austin have been because I went to events and I got connected to the right people. So I think just put the work in is all. It's hard though, I get it. Anything I missed there, Cherie?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. And if you do throw events, it's not about the number of people that show up. It's about who shows up. If it's just one person, that's an opportunity to go deep with that one person.
Yeah, absolutely. I love throwing events, and even though like they're kind of small, like 20, 30 people, like I know everyone there is so intentional, and like I'm going to have a great experience with those people. All right, let's move on to the next challenge. The next challenge is called Red Flag in Startup Culture. I was connecting with a fintech startup which has been going on for 5 years. Super cryptic work culture. They seem to have a high turnover of their admin team and very insular culture. I sent a proposal and they didn't get back to me for 7 months, and then said we've had 4 office managers in the last 5 months. Is this a red flag? When they finally reached back out after I tried to connect with them and they sent some follow-ups, they were very rude, like don't bother us type of attitude. Maybe it's personal, but I get very nervous when I see companies treat people poorly. Not that I know for sure what is going on behind closed doors. Also, when I met the founder last year, his right-hand chief of staff seemed very upset that the founder was apologizing for not having informed them of my invitation to an event. They had gone from an art director position to the chief of staff in a very short amount of time. Even though I was there to expand my network, it seemed like there was something between them beyond professional, which also gave me a strange vibe. I try to be logical about my approach, but I got to go with my gut on these things sometimes. I think the founder thinks very highly of themselves, very highly. I wish them the best of luck and hope they have extraordinary success, but am I wrong to think this is weird behavior? From Powerful Good 8437.
Go for it, Joel. I'll let you kick that one off.
Yeah, trust your gut. I think always trust your gut. I think trusting your gut is actually not advice people take for themselves that much, at least early in their career. So I'm always listening to my intuition and trying to trust my gut if it's good or bad. But I think, when these things all stack up, it kind of seems a bit sus, but I don't think necessarily any of them are that bad. Like going through 4 office managers in 5 months is a lot. But that being said, like we've gone through a lot of engineers in the past because we weren't hiring the right people and we're still working it out. Now we keep our engineers for a long time, but there was like a transitionary period for us. So like, I think it's a red flag to look into, to understand more of. Like, okay, there is a lot of high turnover here. That could be because the company's transitioning into a new culture and into a new set of hiring practices and a new set of standards. And in those periods, there often is high turnover. Not necessarily bad, could be bad. It could be a red flag, and it's worth diving into and taking a lot of questions. And doing your research. Speak to the previous office managers. If they were treated like shit, then it's a bad culture. But high turnover itself is an indicator that something could be wrong, but it also could be a sign of something very good, that they are just changing through a bunch of old staff that had been around for too long.
I think that the red flag that I had was the fact that they didn't reach back out for 7 months. And then you're hearing about the high turnover rate. So obviously there's a lot of changes or things going on internally. In your point of talking, that was the first thing that came to mind, is like talk to other people that have been in that environment to see if they would have any perspective. And if you don't know who those individuals are, ask the office manager or whoever you're interviewing with, 4 names of people that you could talk to. But yeah, the 7 months, that seems,
that
I
is
typically
a
try
bad
to
sign.
get back. Yeah, I typically try and respond to individuals within a week. Even if you are busy, there's no reason, to not get back and just say, hey, things are, we're going through some changes and stuff right now. We'll have somebody reach out, or like, we're not interested at this point in time. Just give some kind of indication, I think is important.
Yeah. I think, individually, I do think these things could be bad, or they could be justifiable. Like maybe the email got missed or something. So like if I'm coming at this purely with like giving them the benefit of that, I think I could explain away every one of these things. But there is a lot here to work through. And like, I wouldn't take this job unless I could tick these boxes. So like, they have a hiring scorecard for you that they're going to be judging you against. You now have one for them. Why is there high turnover? Why emails getting dropped for months? The only thing that I don't like is that the vibe that this CEO treats people poorly, that I would never work somewhere like that. I hate when people treat someone poorly. And that's the main thing. Like, that is a huge red flag that for me personally, I would never accept that and I wouldn't go there. So if you see this person treating someone poorly, I'm out. But if you're just reading between the lines, work it out, speak to different people, ask them directly. Hey, like, your communication style is pretty abrasive. It seems like, you think you work with people that you don't respect very much. Like, and ask them point blank and see how they treat you. And if they treat you like shit, don't go there. So I would just create a scorecard here and see how you want to judge them, because getting a job is two ways. You need to be confident in the people you're going to work with and your boss and what the company's going to be like.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a hard question.
Yeah, I think, every company, especially startups, and they're absolutely not perfect. Their hiring practices aren't perfect. And so you're going to come across different challenges in startups to be aware of. And you just need to make sure that there's enough overlap between your values and the company's values and how they work. And especially with the manager that you're going to be working for directly. So, but if your gut's telling you no, I think trust your gut. There is a lot here. Like the high staff turnover, the lack of emails, the weird vibe between chief of staff and boss. Like, when you stack it all up, probably rule it out. But also, if you're interested in the company, maybe just have the conversation about them and find people that have been there before.
Yeah. Because I was thinking, that the upper management's, it permeates down into the culture of the company. So if you have poor management at the top, that's going to impact every other position in that company. And it's important if you're working for somebody that you enjoy what you're doing. Yeah.
I love the expression, the fish rots from the head down. So, at the top of the company, if they're a dickhead, they're going to accept dickhead behavior. So there's going to be more assholes in the company. All right. Well, let's close this one out. Powerful Good, 8437. First thing, always just trust your gut. But if you're still interested in the company, it could be worth exploring. Write down all your challenges. Start speaking to people that will work there previously, and just ask them point blank a lot of the time. That's absolutely what I would do if I was in that situation. All right, well, that's all we have time for today, Cherie. So let's go to the last section of the show, plugs. What's going on in your world right now? What would you like to plug?
Oh, well, my whole world is all about Fiesta, and we meet on the third Tuesday of the month at Capital Factory. So we'll be meeting again next Tuesday on the 17th. If you haven't been to a Fiesta, please join us 5:30 to 8:30. I'm real excited for Startup Week. Fiesta will be doing a reverse pitch with funders on that Wednesday. I think it's November 6th. We're the last session, and we're going to give 10 funders the opportunity to get on stage and within 3 minutes present who they are, what their fund is, and any other pertinent information for the audience. And then you can find us on fiesta.community. That's our website. That's our socials. That's about it.
I love it. Awesome. All right, Cherie, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for coming on. On my side, plugs, like and subscribe, get your phone out right now, go to YouTube, subscribe, comment on all the videos, get Spotify out, do the same thing. And as always, I condone stealing as long as it's just to like and subscribe on someone else's phone. So steal a phone, get your friends' phones out, like and subscribe on their phones, and then give them all back. Thank you to everyone who writes in. We love these questions. If you've got problems in your startup, if you've got challenges you want to talk through, send them through to podcast@joelditrapani.com. And lastly, I love having these conversations. So book some time with me. I've got a booking link. Tell me what's going on in your business. What challenges are you facing? Let's have a conversation. I love meeting new people. And that's it. We're going to wrap this one up. Cherie, thank you for coming on. I love your advice. I love your stories and your feedback. This has been a whole lot of fun for me.
Likewise. Thanks for having me. I hope to see you out and about in real life.
Amazing. All right. Well, this has been another episode of the Do As I Say, Not As I Did podcast. We'll see you all next week.